Every time you send money, every time you swipe a card, every time your salary hits your account, you think money simply moves. But it doesn't. Behind every transaction is a hidden system, a system most people never see, never question, and never understand. This system decides which banks survive, which banks fail, when governments step in, and why your savings quietly lose power. Today, we're not talking about investing. We're not talking about stocks or crypto. We're talking about financial plumbing, the invisible machinery that moves trillions of dollars every single day. And once you understand it, you'll never look at money the same way again. Most people believe money works like this. You send money, gives, the bank sends money, gives, the other person receives it. Simple. But that's not how modern money works. In reality, banks don't move physical money. They adjust numbers. And they settle those numbers later, not instantly. Your bank doesn't send your money immediately. It sends a promise. And promises are only valuable if the system believes they'll be honored. That belief is what holds the entire financial system together. Let's break it down simply. You send $1,000 from Bank A to someone at Bank B. Here's what really happens. 1. Bank A reduces your balance. 2. Bank B credits the other person 3, but no real money moves yet. Instead, both banks record an obligation. At the end of the day, all banks compare notes. Only then do they settle the difference. This is called interbank settlement. And here's the key point. Banks don't settle every transaction individually. They settle net differences. This saves time, money, and liquidity. But it also creates risk. Some banks end the day short on cash. Others end the day with extra. So what happens? Banks lend to each other overnight. This is one of the most important markets on earth, and almost nobody talks about it. It's called the overnight lending market. Every night, trillions of dollars move between banks, quietly, automatically, without headlines. If this market freezes, banks don't fail slowly. They fail overnight. Here's a critical distinction. Solvent means you own more than you owe. Liquid means you have cash right now. A bank can be solvent and still collapse. Why? Because bills come due today, not someday. Most bank failures don't start with bad assets. They start with liquidity shortages. When banks stop trusting each other, they stop lending overnight. And when that happens, the system starts to seize. This is where central banks enter the story. Central banks aren't there to help you. They exist to keep payments flowing, keep banks lending, keep confidence alive. When private banks won't lend, central banks step in as lender of last resort. They inject liquidity, not because the system is healthy, but because it must not stop. This is why crises always lead to emergency programs, balance sheet expansion, and money creation, not to save people, but to save the plumbing. This system is intentionally invisible, because if people understood how fragile it is, how dependent it is on trust, how often it needs support. They would ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like, why does inflation always follow rescue programs? Why do savers always pay the price? Why does the system protect banks before people? And those questions lead somewhere dangerous. So now you know, money doesn't move the way you think. Banks don't work the way you were told. And stability depends on a system you never see. But what happens when this system breaks down? Who pays the price? And why do ordinary people almost always lose first? Bank failures don't happen randomly. They happen when trust vanishes. Even a solvent bank can collapse if liquidity dries up. People rush to withdraw money, and suddenly the system is in chaos. Governments and central banks step in, but not to save depositors. They stabilize the system. Bailouts often protect investors and large banks first. Ordinary people, their savings lose value quietly through inflation or lower interest rates. The system uses invisible mechanisms to extract wealth. Inflation reduces your purchasing power. Negative interest rates punish savers. Currency debasement shifts value quietly. These are legal, but almost nobody notices. Middle-class households earn wages that barely keep up with asset inflation. Housing, education, and health care rise faster than pay. Debt becomes necessary. Saving becomes harder. The system quietly favors those who already control capital. Most money in the world isn't in your bank. It exists offshore, in a system only a few understand. The U.S. dollar dominates globally. Liquidity shortages in these markets ripple back to ordinary people everywhere. Understanding this system changes everything. Money isn't just what's in your account. Stability is fragile. Trust drives the system. Ordinary people are exposed unless they understand the rules. Now you understand the truth. The system that moves your money is fragile, invisible, and heavily biased toward those who control capital. It's not broken, it's designed this way. Ordinary people carry most of the risk, while large banks and institutions are protected. But knowledge is power. By understanding how money flows, how trust drives the system, and where risk hides, you can see what most people cannot. This is the world of modern finance, complex, invisible, and often unfair, and now at least you see it clearly. Remember, the system may be rigged, but understanding it is the first step to protecting yourself and making smarter financial decisions. This concludes our deep dive into how money moves and why ordinary people almost always lose first. If you want to master money, stay informed, and see beyond the headlines, subscribe to Wealth Casebook. And never be in the dark about the system that runs your money.